Most of us have heard the statement that those who control the past also control the future. For the majority of us, that narrative goes over our heads. However, the ruling elite knows precisely what it means. They allow that narrative to be showcased, knowing that it's going to go over most of our heads. Some describes this practice as being a form of ritual mocking of the victim. The narrative that those who control the past also control the future goes over most of our heads, not because we're not intelligent, but because it's a social science tactic that most of us have never been taught. You can have a PhD in education and never be taught of this social science. It's withheld from our educational development because the white establishment will never provide an education to Black people, which aids us in understanding what they've done in order to maintain their social dominance over us. This is why those of us who know must teach. African proverb. History is a whitewashed lie, but you need to learn why. According to white social scientists, a people's future is predestined by the history they're taught to believe about themselves. Moreover, that an inspiring history is required to achieve an inspiring future because people references their future capabilities based upon their past achievements. More specifically, people references their past positive information about their particular group to acquire a positive self-image and confidence that inspires their future. In a sense, the past can be treated essentially as a set of conditions that justify or encourage future goals. According to white social scientists, truth is not important. What only matters to inspire people's future aspiration, it was perceived as true. People function based upon their perception of what's true rather than what actually is true. This is also why white social scientists says that truth is more important than reality for controlling people and for steering a society towards an applied objective. The true history of Caucasians does not inspire the future aspirations of their racial group, nor does it endorse their current position of social dominance. Therefore, to meet these objectives, the history we've been taught has been whitewashed to make Caucasians appear more significant and more relevant throughout history than they truly in fact were. To meet these objectives, white historians separated their racial group from their true cave-dwelling Neanderthal ancestors of ancient Europe and falsely attached themselves onto we African Homo sapiens. They do so while falsely claiming themselves as being the highest evolved African Homo sapiens that turned white due to migrating to the colder climates of Europe. They also removed themselves from their cave-dwelling ancient history and falsely placed themselves upon the inspiring thrones of Africa's ancient Egypt. White historians also teaches us that the first scholars in history were the Greeks. However, all of Greece's first scholars received their formal education in Africa. Africans are the true scholars. It's also why white historian teaches us that the father of medicine was a Greek named Hippocrates. The true father of medicine was actually an African named Imhotep. Imhotep was practicing medicine and writing on the subject for more than 2,000 years before Hippocrates was even born. White historians have also turned many Black historical figures white in order to make their racial group appear more significant throughout history than they truly in fact were. This is also the hidden reason why, although Egypt is located in Africa, and although radiocarbon date testings have scientifically proven that the ancient kingdom was built by Africans many thousands of years long before the arrival of the Arabs and the Greeks during the 7th century, and although DNA analysis conducted upon mummies of the pharaohs have scientifically proven that they were in fact Africans, white historians and white movie makers ignore these facts and still ridiculously depict the ancient Egyptians of Africa as being Europeans. DNA analysis have scientifically proven that they were in fact Africans. Their DNA matches sub-Saharan Africans. DNA analysis also scientifically proved that Caucasians are actually Neanderthals masquerading themselves as being African Homo sapiens that turned white. White historians have stolen the glorious history of Africa's ancient Egypt and falsely portrays it as theirs and have manipulated the entire world to see things their way. Keep repeating lies through whitewashed history books, media ads, falsely scripted movies. And before long, everyone will accept those false narratives. Turning the ancient pharaohs of Africa's Egypt into Europeans inspires the future aspiration of Europeans. After all, they couldn't possibly inspire their racial group by teaching them the truth that while Africans were building elaborate structures such as pyramids and much more, that their ancestors were living in caves. To make their racial group appear more significant throughout history than they truly in fact were, white historians have also given their racial group credit for most achievements made by Black people. Through this nefarious whitewashing practices, the many inventions made by Black people have been expunged from public records and history, and credit for those inventions have falsely been given to Caucasians. Case, point, and proof. White historians miseducate us to believe that Thomas Edison is responsible for lighting up the world. But in reality, after Edison patented his light bulb, no companies purchased it, no mass produced it. This is because it was not efficient enough. It lit very dimly and only lasted a few minutes. The inventor whose light bulb was purchased, mass produced, and spread around the world was in fact invented by an African American named Lewis Latimer. He sold the patent to the U.S. Electric Company in 1881. He was also dispatched around the world to oversee its installation. Therefore, in reality, it was actually a Black man that lit up the entire world. Latimer literally wrote the book on electric lighting and also holds the patent for the first electric lamp. He's also the man that drew up the pattern schematic design for Graham Bell's telephone. The white society also miseducates us to believe that Henry Ford invented the first automobile. It was actually an African-American inventor and carriage company entrepreneur named Charles Richard Patterson that built the first automobile. It was released in 1905 and sold for $850. It had a 4-cylinder Continental engine. C.R. Patterson began making automobiles before Henry Ford, and his automobiles were considered much more sophisticated. In 1939, C.R. Patterson was forced out of business by Henry Ford. White historians have also miseducated us to believe that the first aircraft was built by the Wright brothers. But the truth is, before the Wright brothers patented their aircraft in 1909, a Black man named Charles F. Page had already invented, patented, and flown an aircraft 3 years earlier in 1906. Although the Wright brothers' aircraft was clearly directly inspired by Charles F. Page's airship version, the Wright brothers circumvented the patent laws by naming their aircraft an airplane, while Charles Page's was called an airship. The white society sits upon a throne of white exalting lies to inspire their racial group. Through its whitewashing practices, the white society has misled many people to believe that Caucasians are responsible for most inventions that have revolutionized the world, and that Black people are the least of society that haven't invented much throughout history. But the truth is that it's the exact opposite. The hidden fact is that after slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865, beginning from 1870 to 1940, African Americans filed 726 invention patents to the U.S. Patent Office. For a people to go directly from being enslaved and then producing so much invention in such a short time span is astounding. It's an astounding feat. Moreover, those numbers more than double those submitted by Caucasians during the same time frame. And in spite of the fact that African Americans then only made up less than 3% of the population, the truth of the matter is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustice of white racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized the world were in fact invented by Black people or were directly inspired by early inventions by Black people. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception designed for maintaining white dominance and inspiring their future aspiration. Without Black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras and microphones on our cell phones. We wouldn't have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have the cataract laser removal. There would be no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller ID, no home surveillance security systems. Would there be no motorized vehicles, no steam engines, no traffic lights, no working light bulbs, no elevators, no skyscrapers, no air conditioning, no modern color PC, no 3D movies, no central heating, no refrigerators, no helicopters, no washing machines, no dryers, no lawnmowers, no refrigerated trucks, no blood banks, no fiber optics, no nanotechnology, no doorknobs, no female sanitary pads, no tricycles, no bathroom tissues, no bathroom tissue holders. The fact is that Black people have enriched the lives of every person on this planet through our many inventions. This fact is deliberately kept from the public through the white society's monopoly over information as a means of maintaining their social dominance and inspiring their racial group. For centuries, there has been existed an agreed concerted effort by the white ruling elites to always distort facts to falsely exalt their racial group above Black people. They conceal truths, perpetuate lies, distort facts, and whitewash history in order to falsely exalt their racial group above Black people. They even distort their maps to make Africa appear 13 times smaller than its true relative size, while making all white countries appear significantly larger than their true sizes. This nefarious practice is called Orwellian propaganda. Orwellian propaganda describes societal conditions created and controlled by propaganda, misinformation, denial of truth, and a distortion of the past to falsely exalt Caucasians, practiced by white governments. It's where the term whitewash comes from. White historians justify its unethical practice as being merely the spoils of war, thus saying that it's customary for conquerors to rewrite history and facts to favor themselves. However, the true reason it's being done is to inspire the future aspirations of their racial group. They inspire the future aspirations of their racial group at the expense of the future aspirations of we Africans. It also provides their racial group with a historical platform that endorses their current position of social dominance. White social engineering scientists also determined that doing so instills a value system into the collective minds of Black people that makes us more compliant with their white dominance over our lives. Through this Orwellian propaganda system, the collective self-esteem of Caucasians has been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-esteem of Black people. True Black liberation begins with elevating your minds above myths and fairy tales and start learning that there are social sciences that the white society deploys to maintain their social dominance over Black people. We must learn these social sciences and then develop counter strategies to overcome them. One love and peace.